The crystal waters of Atlantis, the Palm reflected Dubai's city lights across the Royal Bridge Suite's floor-to-ceiling windows. Rose petals from the evening celebration scattered the marble floor like drops of blood, while two champagne flutes sat abandoned on the nightstand, one still bearing coral lipstick traces. A designer wedding dress hung draped over an ornate chair, its beadwork catching moonlight streaming through balcony doors. Maria Santos Al-Maktoum had exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes of married life before it ended in murder. Less than 5 hours later, those same rose petals would be photographed as evidence, the champagne glasses dusted for fingerprints, and the wedding dress carefully bagged by forensic investigators. The jasmine scent would be overpowered by metallic blood smell, and romantic ambience shattered by harsh fluorescent crime scene lights. Maria Santos entered the world 24 years earlier in a cramped room above a sari-sari store in Tondo, Manila's most notorious slum. Narrow alleyways reeked of sewage and desperation, where children played barefoot between overflowing garbage cans and mothers hung laundry on lines stretched between ramshackle houses. Luz Santos was 19 when she gave birth to Maria, already abandoned by the father and working 3 jobs to keep her growing family fed. She cleaned offices before dawn, sold vegetables at market during day, and mended clothes for neighbors late into night. Her hands were permanently stained with bleach, but her spirit remained unbroken. During evening prayers in their one-room home, Luz would whisper to Maria about her gentle hands and strong heart, about how she would one day help people heal. Maria would close her eyes and imagine herself in a crisp white uniform, walking through clean hospital corridors where people smiled with gratitude instead of pity. Those dreams sustained her through childhood hunger, studying by candlelight when electricity was cut off, wearing the same school uniform for 3 years until it was more patches than original fabric. While other Tondo children dropped out to work in factories, Maria buried herself in textbooks borrowed from the local library. Sister Catherine, a nun running a scholarship program for exceptional slum students, noticed Maria's perfect attendance and stellar grades. The path to University of Santo Tomas seemed impossible until this intervention opened doors firmly closed to children from Tondo. Maria worked harder than anyone else. While classmates came from middle-class families with maids and drivers, Maria cleaned their dormitories to pay for books. While they socialized at coffee shops, she worked nights at a convenience store behind bulletproof glass. While they complained about professors, Maria stayed after every class asking questions. Her professors noticed her dedication and intuitive understanding of patient care. She didn't just see symptoms but human beings who were suffering. Her gentle touch calmed crying children, her patient explanations helped elderly patients understand medications, and her warm smile became comfort in sterile hospital environments. Graduating summa cum laude felt like winning the lottery. Manila General Hospital offered her a cardiac unit position, and Maria threw herself into work with passionate dedication. She arrived early, stayed late, volunteered for difficult cases. Patients requested her specifically, knowing Nurse Santos would hold their hands during procedures and remember their grandchildren's names. This dedication caught the attention of Dr. Ricardo Mendoza, a respected 42-year-old cardiologist with graying temples and kind eyes. During a complicated bypass surgery, while other nurses focused on monitoring equipment, Maria anticipated his every need and talked soothingly to the unconscious patient. Their first coffee lasted 3 hours. Dr. Mendoza listened as Maria described her background and dreams of opening a clinic in Tondo where poor families could receive quality care. He shared medical school stories and his vision for advancing cardiac care in the Philippines. Dr. Mendoza was persistent but patient, always respectful, offering guidance that seemed genuinely intended to advance her career. When he invited her to medical conferences, she learned more in weekend seminars than months of routine work. When he suggested keeping their relationship private to avoid hospital politics, it seemed reasonable. The transition from mentorship to romance happened gradually. Promises quickly became conditions. Dr. Mendoza began monitoring her schedule, questioning interactions with other staff, criticizing friendships with colleagues. He explained that others were jealous of her success and wanted to see her fail. Maria found herself eating lunch alone, declining invitations, spending all free time with him. Financial control followed emotional manipulation. Dr. Mendoza convinced Maria to let him invest her salary in better opportunities. He opened a joint account for their future together, gradually taking control of her income while providing an allowance for personal expenses. The first slap came after Maria attended a colleague's birthday party without his explicit permission. When she came home with traces of celebration, Dr. Mendoza exploded with rage before immediately dropping to his knees, tears streaming, begging forgiveness. He bought her an expensive necklace the next day, took her to Manila's finest restaurant, promised to seek counseling. Maria wanted to believe his remorse was genuine, that violence had been an aberration rather than a glimpse of his true nature. But it happened again. Each incident followed by tearful apologies, expensive gifts, and increasingly hollow promises. Dr. Mendoza's control extended to every aspect of Maria's life, including their sexual relationship. He refused to use protection, claiming it showed lack of trust and commitment. Maria didn't know about Dr. Mendoza's other relationships, the nurses and medical students he had manipulated before her, or his reckless sexual behavior and refusal to get tested for sexually transmitted diseases. The symptoms started subtly: fatigue that rest couldn't cure, persistent cough that wouldn't respond to treatment, unexplained weight loss. As a nurse, Maria recognized these signs but initially attributed them to stress from her deteriorating relationship. When symptoms persisted for weeks, professional instinct overcame personal denial. Maria scheduled an appointment at a different hospital, knowing Dr. Mendoza monitored her medical records at Manila General. The blood test results arrived 3 days later, delivered by a sympathetic counselor. HIV positive. The counselor explained antiretroviral therapy, viral suppression, and the possibility of living a normal life with proper treatment. But for Maria, sitting in that sterile consultation room, normal life felt like a distant memory. When she confronted Dr. Mendoza with test results, his reaction revealed his true character. He denied responsibility, claimed she must have been infected elsewhere, and threatened to destroy her career if she tried to blame him. The next day, Maria found herself transferred to night shift in the morgue, her recommendations mysteriously withdrawn. Determined to escape both Dr. Mendoza and her painful past, Maria applied for nursing positions in Dubai. The process was grueling: medical examinations, interviews, visa applications. She carefully timed her medical tests to coincide with optimal viral suppression, ensuring her HIV status wouldn't be detected in routine screenings. Dubai Immigration Medical Center cleared her for employment. Maria felt like she was escaping not just Dr. Mendoza, but her entire painful past. She would start fresh in a gleaming city where no one knew her story. The plane lifted off from Ninoy Aquino International Airport on a humid morning in September 2017, carrying Maria toward what she hoped would be redemption. As Manila's sprawling slums disappeared beneath clouds, she touched the small pill container in her carry-on bag and whispered a prayer for forgiveness, for healing, and for courage to build a new life from the ashes of her old one. Dubai American Hospital's cardiology wing hummed with quiet efficiency as Maria Santos adjusted to her new life in the gleaming Emirati. The sterile corridors felt worlds away from Manila General's chaotic wards, where patients slept on hallway gurneys and families camped in waiting rooms for days. Here, everything was pristine, organized, and professional, exactly the fresh start she had prayed for during those dark final months in the Philippines. Faris Al-Maktoum noticed her during his mother's routine cardiac consultation in October 2017. At 48, he possessed the quiet confidence of a man comfortable with his place in the world, though that place was decidedly middle-class by Dubai standards. His small property development company, Al-Maktoum Holdings, specialized in modest residential projects in older neighborhoods, profitable but unremarkable ventures that kept him comfortable without making him wealthy. Unlike the flashy developers who dominated Dubai's skyline with glass towers and artificial islands, Faris preferred traditional architecture and practical investments. His office occupied the second floor of a renovated building in Dira, furnished with solid wood furniture inherited from his father and decorated with black and white photographs of old Dubai. He drove a well-maintained Toyota Camry, lived in a 3-bedroom villa in Jumeirah, and took pride in his reputation for honest business dealings. Faris came from a respected middle-class Emirati family with deep roots in Dubai's trading community. His father had been a pearl diver turned successful merchant, his mother a teacher who instilled traditional values alongside modern education. 2 failed marriages had taught him painful lessons about compatibility and communication, though those close to him whispered about his controlling tendencies and explosive temper when challenged. Few people knew about the incident in Morocco 3 years earlier. Amina Ben Ali, a 28-year-old architecture student he had been dating, was found dead in her Casablanca apartment after what police ruled a drug overdose. Faris had been questioned briefly but released when witnesses confirmed his alibi. He never spoke of Amina, and friends learned not to mention her name in his presence. Despite his past failures, Faris retained an old-fashioned charm that appealed to traditional families. He spoke softly, listened carefully, and treated women with apparent respect, at least in public. His mother often praised his devotion to family and his commitment to Emirati cultural values, holding him up as an example to her friends' unmarried sons. The Filipino nurse caught his attention because she seemed genuinely uninterested in his status or wealth. While other hospital staff recognized his family name and treated him with subtle deference, Maria focused entirely on his mother's comfort and medical needs. She explained procedures patiently, held the elderly woman's hand during injections, and spoke in soothing tones that calmed both patient and family. Their first conversation lasted 20 minutes in the hospital cafeteria, where Faris had approached to thank her for the exceptional care. Maria's humility impressed him. She deflected praise back to the medical team and expressed genuine concern for his mother's recovery. When he mentioned feeling overwhelmed by medical terminology, she spent an hour explaining his mother's condition in simple terms, drawing diagrams on napkins to illustrate cardiac procedures. Faris began visiting the hospital more frequently, timing his appearances to coincide with Maria's shifts. He brought his mother for follow-up appointments she didn't necessarily need, extended conversations about her treatment plan, and gradually learned about Maria's background. Her story moved him, the poverty overcome through determination, the sacrifice of working multiple jobs to achieve her dreams, the dedication to healing others despite her own struggles. Their courtship followed traditional patterns that satisfied both families. Faris asked Maria's supervisor for permission to invite her for chaperoned coffee meetings. He included her Filipino colleagues in group dinners, ensuring she never felt isolated or pressured. When he met her family via video calls, he spoke respectfully to her mother and showed genuine interest in their lives in Manila. Maria found herself drawn to Faris's apparent stability and kindness. After the chaos and abuse of her relationship with Dr. Mendoza, his gentle approach felt like healing rain after a devastating drought. He never raised his voice, never criticized her appearance or behavior, and never demanded more than she was willing to give. When she mentioned her Catholic faith, he responded with curiosity rather than judgment, asking thoughtful questions about her beliefs and traditions. 6 months into their relationship, Faris began learning basic Tagalog phrases to communicate with Maria's family. He studied Filipino culture, attended Mass with her at St. Mary's Catholic Church, and even considered converting to Catholicism to make their eventual marriage possible. His mother, initially skeptical about an interfaith union, warmed to Maria after meeting her personally and observing her respectful behavior. But Maria's growing love came with growing guilt. Every tender moment with Faris reminded her of the secret she carried in her daily medication routine. She had drafted confession letters dozens of times, practiced speeches in her bathroom mirror, and prayed for courage during every Mass. Each failed attempt to tell the truth felt like another betrayal of his trust and another step deeper into deception. The fear of losing him paralyzed her. Faris represented everything she had dreamed of: stability, respect, genuine affection, and the chance to build a family free from the violence and manipulation she had known with Dr. Mendoza. Cultural stigma surrounding HIV made the risk even greater. She knew that many traditional families would view her condition as shameful contamination rather than a medical condition requiring treatment. When Faris proposed in February 2018, presenting a modest but beautiful ring his grandmother had worn, Maria said yes through tears of joy and terror. Wedding planning began immediately, with both families contributing to create a celebration that honored Filipino and Emirati traditions. The ceremony would take place at Atlantis The Palm, not the most expensive package, but a splurge that represented Faris's commitment to making their day special. Maria's medication routine became increasingly stressful as the wedding approached. She had achieved undetectable viral levels through consistent treatment, but the constant fear of discovery made every pill a reminder of her deception. She told herself she would confess during their honeymoon in the Maldives, when they were alone and their love was cemented by marriage vows. March 10, 2018, dawned clear and warm, perfect weather for the outdoor ceremony at Atlantis. 150 guests, close family and friends from both cultures, gathered to witness the union of Maria Santos and Faris Al-Maktoum. The ceremony beautifully blended Catholic and Muslim traditions, with both a priest and imam offering blessings on the couple's future together. As Maria walked down the aisle in her modest but elegant gown, she whispered a silent prayer that love would prove stronger than truth, that confession would bring forgiveness rather than rejection. Faris's eyes shone with genuine happiness as he watched his bride approach, believing he had found the perfect partner to share his life and continue his family's legacy. Neither could have imagined that their marriage would end in violence less than 12 hours later, or that Maria's secret would prove more dangerous than any truth she might have told. The Royal Bridge Suite at Atlantis The Palm represented luxury for Faris and Maria's wedding night. At 2,500 dirhams per night, it was a significant splurge for Faris's modest budget, but he wanted their first evening as husband and wife to be perfect. The suite overlooked the Persian Gulf, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing Dubai's glittering skyline. Rose petals scattered across Egyptian cotton sheets, champagne chilled in silver buckets, and soft jazz played through hidden speakers. Maria stood on the marble balcony, watching yachts drift past the illuminated Palm Jumeirah. The warm March breeze carried jasmine scent from hotel gardens below, mixing with salt air of the Arabian Gulf. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe in the fairy tale, that love could conquer all, that her secret could remain buried forever. Her plan was simple: enjoy their wedding night, then confess everything during their Maldives honeymoon. 3 days on a private island would give them time to process the truth together, away from family and cultural pressures. She had researched counselors in Male who specialized in couples dealing with HIV disclosure and prepared herself for every possible reaction. Faris emerged from the bedroom, having changed from his formal dishtasha into comfortable pajamas. His eyes held the same gentle warmth that had first attracted her, the same patient kindness that had made her believe in love again after Dr. Mendoza's cruelty. He wrapped his arms around her waist from behind as they watched city lights dance on water. The evening progressed with romantic predictability. They shared champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries, laughed about embarrassing wedding moments, and called their families. Maria felt anxiety building with each passing hour, knowing tomorrow's confession would either strengthen their bond or destroy it completely. At 11:45 p.m., exhaustion from the day's events caught up with Maria. She excused herself for a shower, leaving Faris relaxing on the plush sofa with wine and evening news. Her luggage sat partially open on the bedroom floor, wedding gifts and toiletries spilling from overstuffed compartments after hasty packing between ceremony and reception. The shower's rainfall head provided blessed relief from elaborate hairstyle and carefully applied makeup. Maria let hot water wash away the day's stress, imagining it could cleanse her of the deception that had poisoned their relationship from the beginning. Tomorrow, she promised herself, everything would finally be honest. Faris wandered into the bedroom, intending to prepare for bed. His foot caught on Maria's open suitcase, nearly sending him sprawling. As he steadied himself, his eye caught something unusual: a small black medical pouch tucked between folded clothes, its zipper partially open revealing prescription bottles he didn't recognize. Curiosity overcame privacy as Faris examined the bottles more closely. The labels were in English and Arabic, bearing unfamiliar medication names: emtricitabine, tenofovir, efavirenz. The prescribing doctor's name was unknown, the pharmacy address in Manila rather than Dubai. Most disturbing was the sealed manila envelope beneath the medication pouch, stamped with Manila General Hospital's official seal. The envelope's contents shattered Faris's world with 3 words: HIV test results. The laboratory report was comprehensive and damning: positive test results dated 3 years earlier, follow-up appointments tracking viral load and CD4 counts, treatment recommendations, and counseling notes. Everything documented Maria's HIV-positive status from long before they had met. The shower stopped. Faris heard Maria moving in the bathroom, humming softly as she dried herself. His hands trembled as he held evidence of her deception, his mind struggling to process the implications. She had known. For their entire relationship, through every kiss, every intimate moment, every promise of honesty, she had known and said nothing. Maria emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a white terry cloth robe, damp hair falling in waves around her shoulders. Her smile faded instantly when she saw Faris sitting on the bed's edge, her medical records spread across the coverlet like accusations. The color drained from her face as their eyes met, and she understood her carefully constructed new life was crumbling. The silence stretched between them, heavy with betrayal and broken trust. Faris's expression cycled through disbelief, hurt, and growing rage as the full scope of her deception became clear. This wasn't a recent diagnosis she had been afraid to share. This was a 3-year secret that had infected every moment of their relationship with lies. Maria's voice came out as a whisper when she finally found words. She tried explaining about Dr. Mendoza, about her plan to confess during their honeymoon, about medications that made transmission nearly impossible, about love that had made her desperate to protect their happiness. But each explanation sounded like another betrayal to Faris's ears, another layer of deception rather than honest confession. His voice remained eerily calm as he asked how long she had planned to lie to him, whether she had exposed him to infection, whether anything about their relationship had been real. Maria's tearful insistence that she loved him, that she had protected him, that she had planned to tell him everything, fell on ears deafened by cultural shame and personal violation. For Faris, raised in a culture where honor and purity held sacred meaning, Maria's HIV status felt like contamination of everything he valued. The woman he had married, the mother of his hoped-for children, the partner he had trusted with his heart and body, had deceived him about the most fundamental aspect of their intimate relationship. The argument escalated as hurt transformed into rage. Voices rose above the suite's soundproofing, carrying through walls to neighboring rooms where other guests stirred uneasily. A champagne bottle shattered against marble as gestures became violent. Rose petals scattered as furniture overturned, and the romantic sanctuary became a battlefield. At 12:30 a.m., neighbors reported hearing muffled shouting through walls. The sounds of struggle, breaking glass, overturned furniture, desperate cries for help, penetrated the suite's luxury insulation. Maria fought with desperation of someone who understood her life depended on escape, her fingernails clawing at Faris's face and neck as his hands found her throat. By 1:15 a.m., silence had fallen over the Royal Bridge suite. The fairy tale that had begun 12 hours earlier with wedding vows and champagne toasts had ended in violence that would shock two nations and forever change how both countries approached the deadly intersection of love, lies, and cultural shame. At 2:20 a.m., the front desk at Atlantis The Palm received a call that would transform a luxury hotel into a crime scene. Faris Al-Maktoum's voice was steady, almost unnaturally calm, as he reported that his wife had collapsed in their suite and was unresponsive. The night manager immediately dispatched hotel security and called Dubai Emergency Services, following protocol for medical emergencies in their premium accommodations. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, their equipment cart rolling silently through marble corridors toward the Royal Bridge suite. When Faris opened the door, they found him fully dressed despite the late hour, his shirt buttoned incorrectly and his hands bearing fresh scratches across his knuckles and forearms. Behind him, the suite showed signs of disturbance: overturned champagne bucket, scattered rose petals, broken glass swept hastily into a corner. Faris led them to the bedroom where Maria lay motionless on the Egyptian cotton sheets, her wedding dress draped carefully over a nearby chair as if she had undressed normally for bed. His story was simple. They had been celebrating. Maria had complained of chest pains, then suddenly collapsed. He claimed she might have had a seizure or heart attack, possibly related to the excitement and stress of their wedding day. The lead paramedic, Hassan Kui, had seen hundreds of cardiac emergencies during his 15-year career. Something felt wrong about this scene. Maria's position seemed too arranged, her body too perfectly positioned for someone who had collapsed suddenly. Most telling were the bruises already darkening around her throat and the defensive wounds on her hands that suggested a struggle rather than medical episode. Hotel security supervisor Ahmed Nasser noted Faris's unusual composure for a man whose wife had just died on their wedding night. Most bereaved spouses were hysterical, demanding answers, desperate for hope. Faris stood quietly in the corner, answering questions with mechanical precision and showing no visible emotion beyond slight impatience with the investigation's pace. Detective Ahmed Al-Rashid arrived at Atlantis The Palm as dawn broke over Dubai's skyline. A 15-year veteran specializing in domestic violence cases, he had developed an instinct for reading crime scenes and recognizing the telltale signs of intimate partner violence. The Royal Bridge Suite told a story that contradicted Faris's medical emergency narrative at every turn. The suite showed clear evidence of violent struggle. Furniture had been moved and hastily repositioned, blood spatter on marble surfaces suggested impact injuries, and broken champagne glass indicated thrown objects rather than accidental breakage. The bedroom revealed defensive wounds on Maria's hands, bruising consistent with manual strangulation, and scratch marks under her fingernails that would later prove crucial to the investigation. Medical examination confirmed Detective Al-Rashid's suspicions. Maria had died from manual strangulation, not cardiac arrest or seizure. The autopsy revealed extensive bruising around her throat, petechial hemorrhaging in her eyes, and defensive wounds suggesting she had fought desperately for her life. Most damning was the DNA evidence under her fingernails, which matched the scratches visible on Faris's face and neck. Security footage from hotel corridors provided a timeline that contradicted Faris's story. Cameras showed no medical emergency, no frantic calls for help, no signs of distress until well after the time Faris claimed Maria had collapsed. Instead, audio recordings from neighboring suites captured sounds of argument and struggle beginning around 12:30 a.m. and ending abruptly at 1:15 a.m. Background investigation into Faris revealed troubling patterns that hotel guests and business associates had previously overlooked. His ex-wives, contacted separately, described escalating controlling behavior during their marriages, explosive temper when challenged, and obsessive concern with perceived betrayal or deception. Neither had reported physical violence, but both described psychological abuse that had driven them to seek divorce. The investigation took a significant turn when Detective Al-Rashid discovered the Morocco connection. Through Interpol databases, he found records of Amina Ben Ali, a 28-year-old architecture student found dead in her Casablanca apartment in 2015. The case had been closed as a drug overdose, but witness statements placed Faris at her apartment the night she died, and the circumstances bore striking similarities to Maria's murder. The Dubai Public Prosecutor's Office worked methodically through the summer of 2018, building a comprehensive case against Faris Al-Maktoum. Prosecutor Fatima Ulzara had handled domestic violence cases before, but none with such clear evidence of premeditation disguised as passion crime. She assembled physical evidence, witness testimony, and expert analysis that painted an unmistakable picture of calculated murder rather than momentary madness. The defense team, led by experienced criminal lawyer Saeed Al-Mansouri, crafted their strategy around cultural honor and temporary insanity. They argued that discovering Maria's HIV status had triggered a psychological break that rendered Faris incapable of controlling his actions. Expert witnesses testified about the cultural significance of purity and honesty in traditional Emirati marriages, suggesting that such betrayal could drive any reasonable man to temporary madness. The Morocco evidence provided crucial context that undermined the defense narrative. Moroccan investigators, working with Dubai police, had reopened Amina Ben Ali's case and uncovered witness statements placing Faris at her apartment the night she died. Toxicology reports showed drug levels inconsistent with recreational use, suggesting forced ingestion rather than voluntary overdose. The pattern of violence against women who challenged Faris's control became impossible to ignore. Character testimony revealed the man behind the public facade. His ex-wives, testifying via video link to protect their privacy, described escalating controlling behavior, explosive reactions to perceived betrayal, and psychological manipulation that had driven them to seek divorce. Colleagues and neighbors spoke of Faris's charm in public settings but noted his possessive behavior toward romantic partners and his inability to accept criticism or rejection. Maria's story emerged through recovered letters to her family, text messages to friends in Manila, and testimony from hospital colleagues in Dubai. Her words revealed a woman trapped between impossible choices, honesty that might destroy her chance at happiness, or deception that poisoned every moment of joy. Her final letter to her mother, written days before the wedding, expressed both hope for the future and fear that her secret would eventually destroy everything she had built. The trial began in September 2018 at Dubai Court of First Instance, attracting modest local attention but avoiding the international spotlight that might have complicated proceedings. Judge Santos Al-Maktoum presided over a case that would test the balance between cultural understanding and legal accountability in modern UAE society. Opening statements crystallized the central conflict. Prosecutor Ulzra argued that Faris had committed deliberate murder, using cultural honor as excuse for inexcusable violence. Defense attorney Al-Mansouri countered that his client had suffered temporary insanity triggered by the ultimate betrayal, discovering that his wife had deceived him about a life-threatening medical condition. Key evidence proved devastating to the defense. DNA under Maria's fingernails matched Faris's scratches perfectly. Security footage contradicted his timeline of events. Medical testimony confirmed manual strangulation rather than accident or medical emergency. Most damaging was the Morocco connection, which established a pattern of violence against women who disappointed or challenged him. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a domestic violence psychologist, explained the escalation pattern common in intimate partner homicides. She testified that Faris's behavior showed classic signs of coercive control, possessive jealousy, and narcissistic rage when his perceived ownership was threatened. The HIV disclosure had triggered violence not because of cultural shame, but because it represented loss of absolute control over his victim. Moroccan investigators testified via video link about Amina Ben Ali's case, describing witness statements and forensic evidence that suggested murder rather than accidental overdose. The similarities between both cases, young women killed after challenging Faris's expectations, established clear intent and premeditation. Faris testified in his own defense, attempting to portray himself as a victim of deception who had acted in momentary madness. His controlled demeanor on the witness stand contradicted claims of temporary insanity, while his inability to show genuine remorse for Maria's death revealed the calculating nature behind his public facade. Maria's voice reached the courtroom through her own words, letters expressing fear about her secret, texts to friends revealing her isolation, and journal entries describing her desperate hope that love could overcome truth. Her struggle between honesty and survival resonated with many observers, particularly women from traditional communities who understood the impossible positions created by cultural expectations. On November 15, 2018, the three-judge panel delivered their verdict, guilty of murder in the second degree. The 20-year sentence reflected acknowledgement of cultural factors while firmly rejecting violence as acceptable response to deception. Judge Al-Maktoum's statement emphasized that no cultural tradition or personal betrayal justified taking another person's life. Faris accepted the sentence without appeal, perhaps recognizing that further proceedings would only expose more evidence of his violence against women. His family expressed mixed reactions, disappointment in the verdict but growing acceptance that their son had committed inexcusable acts regardless of provocation. The Morocco case conclusion brought posthumous justice for Amina Ben Ali. Based on new evidence from Dubai, Moroccan authorities officially reclassified her death as homicide, providing closure for her family after 3 years of uncertainty. The pattern of violence against women who challenged Faris was finally recognized and documented. Maria's mother Luz returned to Manila carrying her daughter's ashes and a settlement that would ensure financial security for her remaining years. The Filipino expat community in Dubai became more cautious about international marriages, establishing support networks for women facing domestic violence and cultural isolation. Legal precedent from the case strengthened domestic violence prosecutions throughout the UAE. Courts began taking intimate partner violence more seriously, regardless of defendants' social status or cultural justifications for their actions. Maria's legacy lived on through quiet but meaningful changes. HIV awareness increased within Filipino communities, reducing stigma through education about viral suppression and transmission risks. Support groups for expat women facing domestic violence expanded throughout the Gulf states. A small scholarship fund established in Manila helped nursing students from Tondo pursue their dreams without sacrificing their safety. The case served a stark reminder that love built on deception can prove deadly, but also that justice can emerge from tragedy when brave voices refuse to remain silent about violence against the vulnerable.